Welcome to I See You, a podcast where we know that human connection restores mental health and resilience. I'm your host, Julie De Jesus, and I see you. Let's be friends. Welcome, ICU community, to another episode on the ICU podcast, where we talk all about how to restore our mental health and resilience through human connection. I am your host, as always, Julie De Jesus, and I'm really excited today to have a good personal friend of mine that I value a lot and has been someone that's helped me on my journey at some pivotal points, and his name is Jason Hewlett. Welcome to the ICU podcast, Jason.
Julie, thanks for having me. I'm proud of you for doing a podcast that's so successful. This is so cool.
Thank you. You're so cool. Jason, tell me about your life. You and I both speak. You do a lot of things on stage that are really fun and cool, which I had the honor and the terrifying experience to be in the front row before when you've done some impersonations that I did not know about. I know it's all over the internet, but I was clueless and so didn't know it was coming. But besides your raptor impressions and different things like that, what's life look like for you? Family, hobbies, career, what's your life like? In our world today, do you ever feel like real, authentic human connection is becoming less of a certainty and more of an anomaly? Well, good news. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm Julie De Jesus. I'm a keynote speaker, an author, and a corporate trainer. I speak all over the country about how to utilize human connection to improve mental health, resilience, and even work performance. If you know a group looking for a speaker, you can contact me at julie-dejesus.com.
My life is extremely busy. It's a wonderful time. We have children that are in the age of graduating high school, going off into the world to do great things. It's a wonderful time. We had 4 kids in 5 years, and so they're all very close, and I make fun of that as I am in the music space, entertainment space, comedy space, and I have wrapped it all into a package of inspirational entertainment that is a keynote speech. So it's more like an experience, and my family knows that my schedule means I travel to make a living, and they've come along with me. We've hit all 50 states. It's been a fun thing as our family has traveled the world, and I've gotten to be in front of big audiences and other times small, but every audience matters. And I love to talk about keeping promises in that space as well as in everyday life. So that is my life. How about you?
What's my life like?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good most days. I'm like, yeah. I'm not a Ricky Martin impersonator, which sounds incredibly exciting and stressful.
Did you want me to talk about that then?
I mean, I just it's like a name drop, but a talent drop. Yeah, I feel like you probably should at this point.
Okay, that's funny.
Talk to me about that stage of life.
I
did not know you then.
For your viewers, listeners, and those that are fans, they probably wouldn't know me, but I do private events as my main shtick. But years ago, I started in Las Vegas as the impersonator. Yes, Ricky Martin, Live in La Vida Loca. I was with the Legends in concert, which was at the Imperial Palace, which is sadly gone now. That's how long ago this was. I doubled as Elton John for that show. So it was quite drastic. You're looking at me now, you're thinking there's no way he could pull off both those characters. But yeah, I looked exactly like him, sounded like him, did the whole shtick, and then eventually left them in terms of Legends in concert, put together a one-man show of about 100 impressions, including the Raptor you're talking about.
Watch this on YouTube for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do impressions like Journey with broken arms instead of open arms. It's a very Weird Al meets Jim Carrey meets Billy Joel type experience. And then I'll do Guns N' Roses, Marge Simpson singing instead of Axl, that kind of weirdness. But I've been paid for many years, made a lot of people laugh. It's been a miracle of a career for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So the reason I brought you on the podcast today, you're a human that I really like. First off, so that's good. I wanted to talk specifically to you because you and I brushed shoulders, handfuls of times. But actually, when this happened, didn't know each other as well as we do now. But you and I met fairly, I think, close to when I got a divorce several years ago. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I just remember when I made this phone call, it was like, this is an interesting person's call, but they said I could. And so I'm open to anything at this point. So I had just gone through, I was going through the process of getting a divorce, which I think anyone that's gone through divorce or any challenge for that matter, when you're going through a big life change, I know for myself, it is been so incredibly important to just feel seen and have connections in place, and not just with one person, but it can be a lot, it can be heavy, and there's a process of needing to vent or just have someone understand, see, hear you. And so for me, that was a new experience, not just getting a divorce, but not having my kids half the time when I was used to doing that and just being alone a lot more in my life. On the podcast, we talk a lot about, distinguishing this lie that I'm alone and my feelings and my experience and my thoughts. And there was one night specifically, fairly recently after you and I had crossed paths as speakers. And I remember I'm knowing me, I'm sure I overshared to you very quickly. You felt like a homie. And I was like, can I just tell you how I actually feel about life? I'm pretty sure that's how that went. I like most of the conversations I've had with you. And telling you that I was going through a divorce. And I just remember, obviously made an impression on me, you extending the offer that I was welcome to call you anytime if I needed someone to talk to. I am aware that there are, whenever you really specialize and do well in an industry, there are a lot of people that want to talk to you for various reasons, and you specialize and do very well in this industry. That's all relative, but from where I'm sitting and within our community. And so I am aware, and in this moment when I remember when I'm having a hard time, and I remember Jason Hewlett said I could call him anytime and talk to him, I was aware then that you probably have extended that to many people and more than just me. And I took the risk and I called you during a really tough time because it's kind of this idea of like it's someone else's turn. I don't want to call the same people every time, and I'm really struggling. What do you remember about that? Do you remember? Because if you don't,
Oh,
it's
of
going to ruin
course.
this whole episode, Jason. Just kidding.
What are you talking about? Who are you again?
I'm like crushed for life.
Yeah.
I
And
wasn't
you
seen.
are who is
Yeah.
this?
So
Yeah.
awkward.
The truth of the matter is that I've extended that offer to a lot of people, and I found it really great that you actually called because candidly, most people won't. They just think that somebody's saying, "Hey, call me." And then they're like, they get scared or, I don't know them well enough. And in reality, what's really helpful is to not just talk to friends and family, but an almost stranger. I think that's a really nice, almost barrier to entry, right? So I don't know the whole backstory. I have no bias towards you or your ex. Like I didn't know
Right.
anything, right? Other than
Mm-hmm.
just like you're this sweet gal that I felt bad for because I have been through divorce and my parents, my siblings, a million friends. Like
Yeah.
I never thought I'd get the call. And so when you did call me, I remember I was outside and I was in a driveway. I don't remember where. I just remember
I
that I was
do.
on a date or something with
You
my
were
wife.
with Tammy, your
Yeah,
wife, and you were at a reception. I
that's
think you
right.
were at a wedding reception and you stepped out
Yeah, that's
from the
right.
wedding reception.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it was up in Park City, Utah, and it was a very beautiful reception. I'm okay, I remember now, but I remember being in the drive when you called, and I thought, "She's probably not gonna call me ever again if I don't take this, even though this is,
Mm.
like, a really bad time."
I'm glad you're saying this now and not in the moment.
Right?
No, really. No,
Well,
really.
yeah, so and it was one of my dear friend's daughter's weddings, and so I'm in there just listening to you, and really, I have nothing really of great advice in my opinion other than I'm a really good listener, and I like to
You
listen.
are.
And I want to I'm known for being a speaker, but I like to say that I make a living as a speaker, but I make a life as a listener. And
Mm,
the fact that you would call me and tell me what you did, I thought, well, this is hard for her. Like what she's going through, like in a crazy way that I haven't experienced. And so I was very grateful that you called and I didn't know what to say, to be candid. I just kept saying, I think if you remember, I was just like, I haven't been through this. I don't know what you're experiencing, but I can tell you this is what I would do for having gone through an injury or a tough time in my life. Like these are some of the things that I've done. And a lot of times a guy tries to solve the problem, and I found that doesn't help either, right? But it's like, let me just listen and see if I can offer any kind of suggestion that might be helpful in some way.
yeah, and you did. I actually remembered when I called you. I remember right where I was. I was in a basement apartment that I just started renting. My kids were not with me at the time. I remember I was standing next to my front door, but inside. And I remember you saying to me, "Hey, I'm actually at a reception." And I don't know how you said it. You left the door open to the conversation, though. You didn't say this is a bad time. You said, "I'm at a reception. Do you need me right now, or should I give you a call back?" Or I don't know what you said, but obviously I was desperate enough or whatever, and I don't even remember what I said either, but I think I may have even started saying, "Yeah," and I think I may have broken down, and it was like game over, and you were just like, "Nope, hang on, I'm going outside." And I remember I don't remember exactly what you said except for one thing, which I think is valuable to share here, especially with the context that you shared that, right, you hadn't been through a divorce. And so often when we want to make people feel seen, sometimes I think it's human behavior. I know I've struggled with this before, feeling like, well, I've never experienced that. So because I can't relate to it, I avoid it because I out of trying to even be kind, trying to be the right person for the job of like, I don't know anything about that. So talk to someone who's been through that because I don't know what to say. But I think there's something to say for suffering is suffering is suffering is suffering. And you know what it's like to suffer. And that was apparent to me from our first conversation. And the advice you gave to me that I remember sticking out, besides you just being kind and listening, was to turn on stand-up comedy. An interesting tool, right, to get through a time of survival. Why do you think you would have given me that advice?
I believe, if I recall the timing of this, I had just recently broken my leg in a violent way. And I was laying in bed for weeks where I couldn't move my leg at all. It had to be in a straight leg brace for 2 months. And so, if I recall, that was one of the pieces that got me through this struggle, which I had never had a major injury, nor been confined to one area. Outside of trying really hard to work and do coaching and things I was being paid to do. In fact, I even had to bail on a gig, which I had never done that before. And I was working really hard to get back to a place where, whether it was in a wheelchair or with crutches, that I could still do the gig. But it was Netflix and Amazon and all the places that I was looking like, do you watch a series for like the next forever while you're laying there? Or do you read a book and then you pass out? Like, I was on so many drugs, whatever, to just get through this, for the pain. The only thing that I could tell you was like, hey, I just been watching all this stand up. And I have never been considered a traditional stand up, but people think I'm a comedian because I'm funny. I actually just do funny things. I don't say anything that's funny necessarily, as a comedian would. And so I've never classified myself that way, but people do. And I'm telling you, watching the stand up for me was just, it was visceral, guttural laughter because of the pain they were talking about, they were going through. So it's like a shared experience, perhaps. And I thought maybe
Mm.
she'll relate to the need to express through laughter rather than just, when is she going to go have a chance to scream her guts out somewhere? She's in this basement apartment. Like, when is she ever going to be able to just do something that's kind of wild and out there? For me, it's usually been playing the piano really loud, because I
Mm.
remember Mr. Rogers used to do that. When, like, if you ever wonder, how did Mr. Rogers get his anger out? He played the piano as hard as possible. Like, that's his thing. My thing was laughing my guts out watching stand up, and that's probably where it all came from.
That's interesting. Yeah, it was really unexpected for me. And interestingly enough, you actually gave me specific names of who to listen to. You said, "Here they are. Boom, boom, boom." Do we want to do this on air? Do you want to guess who it was? I think there were 3.
Well, I don't
One
remember.
of which one of which you then set me up with and I went on a date with later. Maybe you'll remember that from that.
Yeah, it must have been Steve Solberg.
Mhm.
I
Yep,
don't
Steve
know.
Solberg, he's become a good friend.
One of the greats for sure. And
Mhm.
these are guys on dry bar comedy. I would say that's probably where I pushed you first. But like, Ryan Hamilton is somebody that did Happy Face on Netflix, and that was a huge hit.
Yep.
I really love these guys because they're family friendly. They make you feel good, and they equally have a little bit of bite to them. So it's not just like family friendly and it's boring, but kind of funny. It's like choke to death laughing funny because it's clean. It's awesome. I don't
Yeah.
remember who's the other one, Sebastian Maniscalco, or who was it?
Maybe I know Alex
Oh, Alex
Vertelli.
Villado, sure.
Well, yep, it was
Alex
him for sure.
Alex Veludo. So Alex is somebody that a lot of audiences don't know yet, but I'm telling you, he might be
Oh,
one of the most brilliant wordsmiths there is, and he was
he
one of the
is
guys that helped launch
genius.
dry bar comedy. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he's genius. I no, I he's hilarious. I've walked rewatched his dry bar with people, like annoyingly so, trying to watch them being like, "You see how funny he is?" Like, and they always think he's funny, but they think I'm weird because I'm, doing that thing. But no, he's hilarious. And then it's been so fun. You have had this is random, but it feels you've had your own show at Hale Center Theater, Elton John impressions. You were one of the first people I introduced my then boyfriend to. Yeah, you've been around for some pivotal moments. Like, you don't know me, but I know you because I just show up when big life changes are happening. I am around you. It turns out. So I don't know if that's weird or special or meant to be, but yeah.
meant to be. I love it. And yeah, I did have a show at Hale Center Theater, which is a lot of people consider it the top family friendly, but also like a community based family theater in the whole country of the United States. And the thing that's interesting about them is that they were started by friends of mine, the Dietline family, and of course they're community supported, but they bring in people from all over the world to work
Yeah.
on their sets. I mean, each show costs about $1 million to produce. They're that serious about it. It's 900 plus seats in a theater in the round, and then they have and that's where they do like big Broadway musical type productions that are spectacular and the best there is. And then there's a theater next to it called the Jewel Box where they have about
Mhm.
460 seats, and that's where I got to do my show. And I was the first one they've ever brought in that did a one-man show of any kind, and it's gone so well that they brought me back a time or two. They're now bringing in other acts like my friends from Gentry and that are
Oh,
like the
cool.
singing gentlemen,
Mhm.
and those guys actually all met in the other theater across the aisle, which they were in Les Mis together back in the day, and they all met at Hale. So anyway, what I remember about meeting your guy, which was really interesting, is that obviously he was very handsome, and I was thrilled for you because you looked so happy, and I don't remember if it was like one of the first dates or like I don't remember, but I remember
No,
like
you actually asked, "How many dates have you been on?" We looked at each other, and he's like 50? I don't know.
okay.
Like, our it was one of those things where we had lunch, and we talked for 6 hours straight and blew off our days, right? Like, and every day since, yeah.
Every day. Okay, yeah, so you guys were familiar with each other, which was cool because he was really himself, which he's a really cool guy, and you're a really strong personality. And, so to see the two of you kind of be toe to toe working this thing in front of me as he's like, kind of celebrating how cool I was, and you were celebrating that you're my friend. It was a neat experience. And then I believe that it's only been recently that we made another connection about my son and
Oh,
your
yeah.
husband. So the fact that he taught him in a religious setting was really a special thing. So my son was like, "Wait a minute. Julie married who?" Like they all knew you because they're like, "Oh yeah, she's your hot friend." Or that's what my boys say about you. And I'm like, "Yeah,
Are you
that's
serious?
oh yeah."
My
They're like,
hot soccer mom?
"She's so hot." They always say that when they see your posts, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's my friend Julie." They're like,
And
"She's
then
so hot."
that's
Yeah.
amazing, and then I married their seminary
And then
teacher.
they're like,
Let's
"Wait a minute.
go.
She
Be
married
righteous, and you get the hot girl. Let's go. Lessons.
she married Brother De Jesus." I said, "I guess." Like I was just, and they were like, "He's the best teacher I've ever had." Like, and I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, that makes sense because he won a great gal and she won a
Mm.
great guy." Like, it's a cool thing to see your friends land at the right place.
It is. No, it is, and I appreciate that. Well, and interestingly enough, even I mean, speaking of human connection and just how, like, we're all linked somehow, my husband Daniel, he's like he doesn't even have a social media account. He's not like online. I don't think he really knows what I do, to be honest. Like, you know, like loves me, supports me, but like doesn't really know, he's not really a respecter of persons. I remember when we were dating trying to like I've never thought of a name dropping type of person, but all of a sudden with him, it was coming out. I was like, something about well, I mean, I did present it at the governor's mansion, just a little like slip in there. Like, apparently, I do stoop that low once in a while. And he just was like, don't know, don't care. Like, love you, don't care, don't really, like, just not really much a respecter of persons. And it wasn't until later that I think I made some comment about having gone to Brandon Sanderson's like marquee house or something, nothing to do with speaking, completely different. And all of a sudden, he was like, what? And he's like, you have been trying to drop our whole relationship and you're the fantasy author. Oh my gosh, I do have a way to use you. It turns out, you know what I mean? But it's just funny how like these worlds were not, there's no way for him to know you. But at our show, even one of your, I don't remember this, but one of your band players he taught, this is before we knew about your son, and he was watching, I think he was playing the sax or the clarinet. He's like, that's my kid. That's my student. And then later,
Wow.
yeah, to hear that you guys opened my wedding invitation and that they saw Brother De Jesus with Julie is just fun.
Yeah.
I like to
I
think
agree.
good attracts good.
Yeah. Well, you guys certainly are a great match. And obviously
Thanks.
it was because I told you to watch stand up. So you're welcome.
100%. 100%. Yeah, that's how that wraps around is I watch stand up and then I was inspired to go on a date with him and Jason takes all the credit and
You're
now we have to give
welcome.
him 5% of our income for the
That's
rest of our
right.
life.
5%. It's good.
5%. Yeah, it's going to be a good chunk. No, but like really like the way that our stories have interweaved, you've most certainly been more of a mentor to me than I could ever be to you. But I hope to pay that forward with other people as an example, and other people in this community that have more experience in it have been to me. I'm always trying to repay that because that's just there's no like deserving of it. It just is. You just try to do good, and that's really what you've done. I mean, it goes back to keeping the promise. For our ICU community, that's like you said, that's your whole thing is it's all about keeping the promise. I remember actually I read your book, and to be honest, I don't know about you.
Oh.
I don't always read people's books. Okay? Like they
Usually
give them
just
to me
read
and
the
I
back
just don't
just
read
read the
them.
back cover and that's enough.
But I read yours and I was literally I remember reading most of it when I was donating plasma because when I first got divorced, I was like, "Yes, I'm making enough in speaking to support, me and my kids right now, but, who knows? Who know like, I just kinda went into this mindset of, like, I need to do everything." So it's like I was subbing, I was speaking, I was donating plasma, like, anything just to make sure we're gonna be okay. So I remember sitting there donating plasma, reading about the promise. I remember being there, and, it was really not just the stand-up comedy, but also leaning into that framework of the promise, which I think is really powerful, was really uplifting for me because I think sometimes when we're during challenge and a big life transition, it's obviously easy to see in front of you the challenge that is going on, but to have a framework for something, not just what you're kind of reacting to, but here's a positive thing I want to be proactive about, can help distract from the maybe the challenge you're reacting to of like, how do I want to live? Right?
That well, and that's the perfect story about keeping a promise. Donating plasma. I mean,
Mm,
that for a lot of people, they might say, "Oh, I'm above that," or "I can't do that," or whatever, right? And you're just like, "I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive this thing," and so I applaud you for that. And that's really what the book is about. We talk about promises for people we serve, for our clients, our customers, for people we work with or our own family, but then there's the promise to the one, which is yourself. And,
mm.
we break that promise the most, I think. And that's why I wrote the book about that first, because there will be more books to come. But, making and keeping a promise to yourself, even as something as simple as like setting the alarm and getting up when that alarm goes off, the first promise of the day kept, making your bed, doing your workout, eating right, and hey, if you have some sugar, and you promised you wouldn't, you can forgive yourself, start again tomorrow. I mean, the whole book is about forgiveness essentially and the promises we break to ourselves, but then how we can really rectify that each and every day by doing our best. So I'm proud of you for doing that. And I'm shocked you'd read that book. I'm telling you, most people have told me that they've read the first chapter, and that's okay. I'm like, yeah, you got it then. Like, that's most books, you can get the whole thing in the first chapter, right?
Mm,
But I usually love to read through an entire book because then I can pinpoint my favorite story from like chapter 6. And it
yes.
stuns the author when I tell them, I'm like, oh, my favorite story is this one, not the one on the first page. And they're like, oh, you read it.
Well said. Well, and for me, the reason I wanted to bring you on is, and no offense, not from what we know about speaking, but really this pivotal moment that we talked about where I called you because but it does align. I mean, this is a great example of trying to be the same person where you are everywhere, of keeping your promise of I said this girl, I would pick up a phone call. Okay, now it's being tested because I'm not just like chilling, which I don't think you're rarely chilling, right? You're either in a cold plunge or at a gig or something, right? Or like working out. I don't know. Jason's
Yeah.
gotten ripped recently. We're all noticing. So basically, like that to me is a perfect moment of that and of you choosing to keep the promise. I would imagine someone has done that for you before, for you to try to pay. Because I know by your example and the examples of other people too, but that motivates me to want to do the same for others. It may not always be for you. It may be, it may be someone younger than me. Like
Yeah.
who in your life has inspired you to do that? Who's an example to you of that?
Well, if it's all right if I pop off the screen while I grab a picture.
Please do.
When you were telling me that you're like, someday I'm going to pay you back and whatever, I'll mentor you back. The thing is that we mentor each other when we're able to serve each other. And so I don't imagine that there is a need for a payback. There isn't, in my opinion, but
Yeah.
that's how we think, right? And so a
Yeah.
friend of mine calls it friend touring. He says, let's just
Mm,
be friend tours for each other. And what I love about what you said was that even if I can't pay you back and or however you said it, I'm going to go and pay it forward to others. And I remember
absolutely.
when I first started into the idea of being an entertainer and a speaker, I had no idea where to go or what to do. And I was introduced to this man. For those that are watching, you can see this old guy. His name is Chris Polis. In fact, I wrote about him in my book. There's a whole chapter dedicated to him called Mentorship. He passed away a couple of years ago on Christmas Day, in fact.
Mm,
But Chris, he told me, because I remember he was my first manager. He's the only manager I've ever had. And I said, how am I supposed to pay you back? Because it was now I went from making nothing and doing every gig possible to then making a living. And I said, how do I pay you back? And he goes, oh, pay it forward. Just do the same thing I've done for
mm,
you. I used to go, Julie, every single, I mean, probably 3, 4 times a week. I'd go and sit on his couch for 6 to 8 hours a day and just listen to him and talk philosophy and talk what would happen if I had a huge opportunity that was against my values? What would I do? Like he would pose these questions that were just kind of crazy to me. And I was like, well, if I have a great opportunity, I need to take it. And he's like, but what if it doesn't align with your values and your promise to God? And I'm just like, who thinks this way? Like if it would have been a Hollywood producer, it would not have been that conversation. And so, as you know, in my book and my story, when Las Vegas came knocking and they wanted to give me kind of the world, they needed me to change my act and my values essentially for what I would do on stage. And I turned that offer away. And that's become a defining story of my life and really something very important to me. It never happens without Chris Polis. And so when
Mm.
you ask who's done that for me, I mean, obviously outside of my parents and great teachers and my own wife, who's my greatest mentor, Chris Polis is the story I like to share a lot about because I can't pay him back, but I can pay it forward.
And I would assume Chris isn't super well known in the world at large.
No, no, not at all. And I mean, he did a lot of great things in his life. He actually used to book Stephen Covey, and I mean, he did a lot of big things for a lot of people. He used to have a singing group that went around called the 3Ds. They used to write music to poetry, and then they opened for big acts like Sammy Davis Jr. in Las Vegas. But like, they
Cool.
always kept it G-rated, family friendly, and that became my calling card too. I was like, I'm going to be a G-rated, family friendly, Las Vegas quality act, but it's going to also be on my own terms and keeping the promise. And that was because of Chris.
Good for you. That's really neat. If there's someone that is moments when hopefully we choose to reach out to someone, and like you said, because you were almost a stranger at that point, there was, I think, something powerful to that perspective of, like you said, you didn't. And I think seeing people, sometimes I think we feel the need to know someone's situation of like, okay, but what happened in the marriage? What happened here? I've had, what, when really, if someone is suffering and hurting and you have the energy or ability to help, I which I believe you did, I don't really see why that's even necessary. Even if what they're going through is by actions of them. I mean, I chose to get a divorce. Like I left. So some people could say, like there's a lot that leads up to that, but there are people that could say, like, I have people say it, like, well, you chose this. And it's like, yeah, and it's still hard. It's still tough, right? If there's someone that's feeling how I was feeling that day, we can tell them maybe try some stand-up comedy. Go on a date with Steve Solberg. I mean, it's helpful. He's a funny guy, right? No, what advice or lasting thought would you give to them, as sometimes it can feel really overwhelming in the moment and you can do one thing, right? They can't tackle everything. What would be your suggestion, having been in those moments yourself?
I would probably say that remember everybody's suffering in some way, and there's always a listening ear that we can offer. I had a friend recently who got offered the job of a lifetime and he knew he couldn't take it. And he called me and then he called me to talk about should I do this or not. And I said, what did you ask your wife about? And he goes, I haven't told her yet. I said, okay, so what are you going to do? And she got upset when she found out he called me first. And I had to remind her, I said, look, I remember one of my other friends got cancer. He got a cancer diagnosis that he's going to die in a few weeks. He had stage 4. And while he was on the subway after leaving the doctor's appointment, before he went home and told his wife, he had to tell a stranger on the subway. It's almost like a buffer between getting through the ability to be able to say, how do I say it? Right. And so, in my opinion, I'm happy to be the stranger on the subway. And if we can be that open ear, that shoulder to cry on for any person, just keep the promise to keep your eyes open, maybe your earbuds out, and pay attention to the world rather than just falling into our own cadence and our own pattern every single day, and look around and say, I know there's somebody around here that I can help if my eyes and ears are open and my heart is ready. God will send them to me and me to them. And hopefully we can synergize and do some heavenly choreography, as Chris Polis would call it. Heavenly choreography. It's a dance between two people trying to figure out how they can do God's will. I think that's an important part of the promise.
I like that. And as we saw in my story, to my credit, sometimes you do have to be the one to reach out when it's you, right? People
Too
can't
many
read our
people are too
minds. And
scared to even talk. So open your mouth. Yeah, for
yep.
sure. That's right. Yeah. I'm so glad you did. Like, think how bad I would feel like,
Did
and
it benefit you in some way?
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How did it
I mean,
benefit you?
it benefits the listener in the sense of saying, I was trustworthy enough in that person's mind to be called.
To bring
And
some purpose,
yeah,
like
brings you
some
purpose
like
for sure.
I make
Yeah.
an impact to someone. I matter here. I'm doing
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah, good point. I mean, for me, uh, it's always almost like when you say, the talk I wrote wasn't for the audience as much as it is for me. I mean, that kind of a thing where
Yeah.
when you called me, I was like, wow, I can't believe she actually reached out. We hardly know each other. I'm really glad that I could be that person. But like, it affected me in a big way. Now you're in my prayers. Now I'm thinking of ways to help you. Now I'm thinking about that the next time we talk. And we got on some group texts and all of those
Yeah.
things. It was nice to be a part of your process, right?
Yeah.
Even if I wasn't like the inner circle guy, but I was just like
Mm-mm.
somebody you could reach out to. That made me feel really important. And I think a lot of people forget that everyone wants to be a mentor to somebody. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to feel like they have something that matters in their advice. So, yeah, I mean, when I have something that I'm going to approach you with, I know you'll respond and it will affect you in a good way as well. And I'm just glad to be a part of that process. So, yeah, that's a big part.
I'm glad. Well, thanks for being that person in that moment. It means a lot. Means a lot, and I do hope to pay it forward. I hope that all of us in the ICU community can pay forward the people that show up in those moments, even when you don't know them very well. And I think I'm also learning from you today. A lesson that is bringing to mind is just to also say what we mean, and take people at their word, I think is a really good way to live. So just like watch out, because if you tell me that, hey, you can call me anytime, I'm going to take you at your word, because that's how I try to live. Because man, it's just exhausting trying to like second guess and read people's minds. And I think for me, if I say that, I need to mean it. I need to be willing to pick up the phone. If I can't, shoot a text later, like obviously we all have grace for each other, but I think there is something really important in meaning what you say. And if you don't have the capacity, that's okay, but probably don't say it. Offer the support you can in the moment. If you don't have time for a phone call, probably don't offer one, right?
That is the promise through and through, and good for you to articulate it so well, because I have had people that have been, like, hey, call me anytime to talk about your business, or let's talk about what you're going
Yeah,
through. And then I do call and they don't pick up or respond to the text. And I'm like, man, I was burned again. And it's hard to pick up the phone for the next person to try again.
it
So,
is. It is. Yep, absolutely. Jason, thanks for being on the ICU podcast today, friend. Thanks for your friendship and the way you continue to impact my life and so many for good. A good
thanks for all you
example.
do, Julie. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Listeners, we'll see you next time on the ICU podcast. Okay, let's be real. Sometimes what I think we need to restore our mental health more than anything else is just a break, which is why I think I need a vacation. And so do you. Join me and my special guest, Tony Overbay, on the first ICU Living Cruise, the mental health cruise of a lifetime. Check out and make sure you grab those early bird tickets at julie-dejesus.com/cruise. And guess what? You don't even need a babysitter. Kids set sail free. julie-dejesus.com/cruise.